My family cut me from my brother's welcome home party, so I posted a ski selfie, and what happened next made them beg me to return. I was lying on the couch, my laptop open, but no longer useful. My eyes were locked on the text that had just appeared on my phone screen. Vic, just a heads up, so you're not surprised. The guest list for this weekend's party is final. There isn't enough space, so we had to cut a few people. Hope you understand. The message was from Noah, my younger brother, who had just completed his 18-month military service. And me, the one who sent dozens of care packages all the way to his base in Germany, who stayed up through time zone differences just to talk to him when he was feeling down, was now cut from his welcome home party. I stared at the screen, waiting for another text. Something like, "Just kidding, you're a very important person, but nothing. Just a cold, matter-of-fact exclusion. No explanation, no guilt." It felt like something dropped to the bottom of my chest. A quiet impact, not loud enough to scream, but heavy enough to make my chest feel like it was weighed down with stone. I had been there for him through all those months, when our parents were too busy or too clueless to know how to talk to a son stationed in a strange land filled with sleepless nights and grueling drills. I was the one who helped Mia, his fiancée, plan a surprise video call on his second birthday away from home. I designed the digital invitation for their engagement party, tweaking every detail because Mia wanted it to look professional. And now I'd been crossed off like an extra guest, an outsider. Abrar. Unable to swallow the sting of being shut out, I called Dad. He'd been excitedly talking about this party for weeks, the menu, the live music, even renting a huge projector for a highlight reel. The phone rang twice before he picked up. His voice was familiar. "Hello, Vic, what's going on, sweetheart? I didn't beat around the bush. Noah just texted me. I'm not on the guest list. You knew about this, didn't you?" There was a pause on the other end, then a sigh, the kind I knew all too well. The kind he used when he didn't want to deal with something. Vic, don't overreact. It's just a family get-together. Space is tight. You know that." I bit my lip. My voice stayed calm, but every word felt like it was slicing into me. Not enough space. I just saw Noah's Instagram post with over 80 names on the list. Distant relatives, elementary school friends, CO workers he's known for a few months, and me? I'm his sister. Dad cleared his throat, sounding awkward. "Those people RSVP'd early. It's hard to take anyone off now. Don't take it personally, sweetheart." I gripped the phone, my knuckles white. Don't take it personally. I was there when he was a nervous wreck in his first uniform. I stayed up all night talking him through rough training days. And now you're telling me not to overreact. Another sigh, like I was the one making a scene. "Don't make this into a thing. It's just a party. One night." I didn't respond. I could only hear my heart pounding like it was warning me something was about to crack. I hung up, my hand trembling. My eyes stayed on the phone screen where Noah's "not enough space" message still sat unblinking. My fingers began scrolling through old photos and messages. His grateful texts when I sent homemade cookies. The heart emojis when I had his favorite takeout delivered. Those old messages saying, "Without you, I probably would have given up already," now felt like a distant dream. I set the phone down and stood up, my heart echoing with silent noise. I wasn't angry at Noah for crossing me off. I was angry because he didn't care, because he didn't see anything wrong with it, and most of all, I was angry at myself for always being there. Too ready, too trusting, too quick to forgive. I looked out the window. The sky was a dull gray, heavy like my chest. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to sit around waiting for permission to exist anymore. I sat frozen on the couch, my hand wrapped around a coffee cup gone cold. Dad's words still echoed in my mind like a stuck recording. "It's just a gathering, just a gathering." The way he said it sounded so light, like I was overreacting, like my disappointment wasn't worth acknowledging. But how could I not be hurt when my own family so easily deemed me unworthy of being there? I got up and walked into my small home office where stacks of design drafts still covered the desk. I opened the drawer and pulled out a small USB stick. On it was the design file for the Welcome Home Noah poster, something I'd created for free without being asked because I thought it was what family did. I remembered staying up until nearly 2 a.m., just to find the exact font Mia liked, something delicate, elegant with soft curves. She sent me a heart emoji after I emailed the final draft. No one ever said thank you, but I didn't mind then. I thought if it made him happy, if things went smoothly, that was enough. I remembered when he texted me at 2 p.m. during a training break. "Sis, my car broke down. I don't know what to do." I didn't ask questions. I just transferred $500 with a note. "Fix your car. Don't stress." The first time he left for basic training, Mom didn't know how to pack his bags, and Dad was tied up at the repair shop. I was the one who ran all over town to find the right military-grade backpack, printed his packing checklist, and woke up at 4 a.m. to drive him to the military station over an hour away. And now I wasn't even invited to the day he came back. Hey, bro. I turned on my computer and opened a photo folder labeled Noah's Journey. Everything from his awkward first uniform photo to screenshots of our video calls, his eyes shining even in some makeshift room somewhere in Europe. A while later, my phone buzzed. A message from Mia Vic. "I know Noah texted you. Honestly, I was surprised. You weren't invited too, but please don't take it personally. Noah just didn't want the party to get too crowded." I read her words as my heart turned colder by the second. Not because of what she said, but because of how they talked about me, like I was some burden to the atmosphere. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I shut my laptop and walked to the window. Night had fully fallen. The streetlights glowed as I watched silhouettes move along the quiet street in West Portland, the neighborhood I'd lived in for nearly 6 years, over 1,000 miles from my parents' house. But I was always the one who came back when they needed something. When Dad had to replace the entire plumbing system, I paid the bill. When Mom needed someone to take her to her medical appointments, I booked the flights, rented the car, and arranged the schedule. I was always willing. But now I started asking myself, how many times have I given without ever receiving? How many times have I sacrificed just because I thought I was supposed to? Because I was the good older sister. I didn't know how long I stood by the window before the phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from Dad. "Vic, please don't overthink this. It's not worth getting upset about. Please understand, Noah. He just wants a peaceful evening. No tension." I let out a laugh. The first of the day, but it had no joy in it. No tension, so I'm the tension. I'm the one who ruins my own brother's peace just by being there. I walked over to the closet and pulled out my suitcase. The old pair of snow boots I bought last year but never got to use sat quietly in the corner. I opened my laptop and typed into the search bar, "Solo ski trip Colorado." Images of cozy cabins tucked into pine forests, snow-covered landscapes, and crackling fireplaces filled the screen. In that moment, I knew I wasn't going to wait for anyone to invite me. I would write my own plans. If they thought I wasn't important enough to be at that party, then I didn't need to sit here and endure being treated like an afterthought. I was no longer the older sister, always behind the scenes, sacrificing in silence. Not this time. Not ever again. The next morning, I left my apartment earlier than usual. The sting of being left out still lingered. But instead of sitting at home stewing in anger, I grabbed my bag and headed out, stopping by the corner cafe I usually visited on weekends, Hazel's Brew. The morning air in Portland still carried the crisp chill of early spring. The cafe was warm, filled with the scent of cinnamon waffles and soft jazz music that helped ease my heart a little. I ordered my usual, an unsweetened almond milk latte and an apple tart, then picked a spot near the window where the sunlight landed just right on the glossy wooden table. I was about to check the news on my phone when the voices of 2 people behind me grew louder than usual. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. Really, I wasn't. But when I heard my name, my heart froze. What's her last name again? Victoria. Didn't see her name on the guest list for Noah's welcome back party. That was Leia's voice. My cousin, who always had a way of speaking that sounded half accidental, half deliberate, so others would hear. Maybe she did something to upset Noah. I mean, who crosses their own sister off a guest list? I heard she used to be kind of controlling. I held my breath. The second voice was Jenna, another cousin who once messaged me to design a birthday invitation for her son, then forgot to say thank you. Maybe she stopped helping with money. I heard she used to wire him some cash when he was in a bind, but now radio silence. Yeah, can't really blame Noah, who wants someone bringing drama to a party. It felt like someone had slapped me across the face. My ears burned, my throat tightened. I forced myself not to turn around, biting my lip hard and staring at my latte. every word they said slicing through what little belief I had left in my family. Burka. I don't know how long they kept talking. I just know that when I stood up, my coffee was still full, but I felt completely empty. I walked out like a ghost, my hand gripping the strap of my bag so tightly it hurt. What they said wasn't just gossip, it was confirmation. In their eyes, I was the extra. I walked without direction, not realizing where I was going until I found myself in front of the small bookstore at the end of the street. The one Noah and I used to visit the summer before his senior year, back when he was still that shy little brother who clung to me in crowds. I remembered that afternoon how he picked a book about military history and looked at me with sparkling eyes. "If I join the army someday, would you support me?" I hugged him and said, "I'll always be behind you," and in all the years that followed, I kept that promise. What I didn't expect was that, by the time Noah came back, my place had been replaced by careless whispers and suspicious looks from our own relatives. I pulled out my phone and reopened the texts from Dad, Mia, and Noah. All read, none replied. Then I realized none of them thought leaving me off the guest list was wrong. They just thought I was being sensitive, making a fuss, being difficult. I didn't need an apology, I needed respect, and that clearly was something they had never truly given me. I returned home with a decision both clear and firm. I would not let myself be labeled as the difficult one ever again. If they thought I didn't deserve to be part of their celebration, then I didn't need to be the one fixing problems I was no longer a part of. I opened my laptop and returned to the travel booking page I'd searched the night before. My cursor hovered over destinations like Aspen, Jackson Hole before stopping at a place I never thought I'd go. White Pine Lodge, Wyoming, a wooden cabin nestled among pine trees beside a frozen lake with endless snow-covered slopes. No noise, no judgment, no demands. I clicked book. At that moment, I didn't know what was waiting for me in Wyoming, but I knew one thing for sure. I was done being the forgotten one. That night, I sat alone on the living room floor, soft yellow light spilling onto the warm wooden floor. My empty suitcase opened beside me like a void waiting to be filled. The apartment was so quiet I could hear the ticking of the clock. I had just booked a ski trip to White Pine Lodge in Wyoming, a place I'd never been, never imagined would mark the beginning of my self-rescue. I didn't book economy class, not this time. I chose first class, and I didn't hesitate when I hit the payment button. If I'd spent years prioritizing everyone else's feelings, sweating over every little detail for parties that weren't even mine, then this time I would choose myself, every single moment. The cabin I picked was a private one right by the frozen lake with wide windows looking out at snow-covered mountains and a real wood-burning fireplace. It came with a full package, a private ski lesson, lift tickets, even a fine dining dinner at the resort restaurant. The total cost might make some people wince, but I didn't care. I was used to spending money on others. This time, I was investing in myself. Friday morning, I arrived at the airport early, wearing a thick cream-colored coat and the beige knit hat I bought last year but never got to wear. Sitting in the first-class lounge, hands wrapped around a hot cup of tea, watching planes glide past the windows, I felt a lightness, as if I'd just cut the cord tying me to years of heavy expectations. The flight to Wyoming was smooth. The flight attendants treated me like I was truly a very important person, and maybe for the first time in my life, I felt like I deserved that. When the plane landed in Jackson Hole, the biting cold made me shiver. But it was a good kind of cold, a cold that snapped me into clarity, like my body was shedding every last trace of careless words, heavy silences, and looks that no longer saw me. The driver who picked me up was a middle-aged man named Hank, with a salt-and-pepper beard and a warm voice. "First time at White Pine?" he asked while fastening his seatbelt. "Yes, I heard it's peaceful and beautiful. Hoping it lives up to that. Better than you'd expect?" He smiled, squinting behind his sunglasses. "People come here to find themselves. Maybe that's what you're doing too." I paused for a moment, then nodded gently. "Maybe I am." The road from the airport wound through snowy pine forests, wooden cabins scattered along the mountainside like a holiday postcard. When we pulled up to the gate of White Pine Lodge, I couldn't breathe for a second. It was stunning. A main lodge built of wood and stone, snow-covered shingles on the roof, a soft plume of smoke curling from the chimney. It all looked like something out of a fairy tale. The receptionist, Tara, a woman about my age with a long braid and cheeks pink from the cold, greeted me with a warm smile. "You must be Victoria. Your cabin is ready. And here's a welcome glass of wine. We hope you have a wonderful stay." I took the glass of red wine, my hand trembling slightly from the cold. Or maybe from emotion, I wasn't sure. The cabin was tucked deep in the quietest part of the resort. When I stepped inside, the warmth from the fireplace made my cheeks flush. A bed with a fluffy down comforter, an armchair beside the fire, a small bookshelf with winter novels, and outside the window, a frozen lake glinting under the sunset. I set my suitcase down, sank into the thick wool rug, poured myself a glass of wine, and just sat quietly. No phone notifications, no guilt-tripping messages, no one asking me to be the bigger person. Just me and the kind of peace I'd dreamed about for so long. I opened my phone and posted a photo of the cabin with the caption, "Not on the list? Then make your own list." I scheduled it to go live 2 hours later, just when I knew the party back home would be starting, so they'd know I wasn't just missing. I chose to disappear with purpose and grace. That night, I sat by the fireplace with a book, occasionally looking up to watch the snow fall outside the window. And in that moment, I knew without a doubt I had made the right choice. I had just poured myself another glass of red wine when my phone buzzed for the third time in less than 5 minutes. The screen showed Mom with the familiar 3 dots, like she was typing something so long it needed serious thought. I didn't bother opening it. Instead, I tucked my feet up on the armchair, pulled the soft fleece blanket over my legs, and brought the wine to my lips. The aroma held a hint of berries and oak, warm, elegant, completely opposite to the chaos waiting in my inbox, just as I'd predicted. The moment my cabin photo post went live, right on schedule, the reactions from my family exploded like wildfire. The simple caption, "Not on the list?" Then make your own list, paired with the image of me sitting by the fire, glass in hand, snow glowing through the window. Didn't need a tag or explanation, but everyone got it. And just like that, the message storm began. "Mom, Vic, what are you doing? Don't let your emotions make you act like this. Everyone was hoping you'd be there. Dad, this is Noah's celebration, not the time for theatrics." "Noah, are you serious posting that kind of photo and letting everyone gossip? What do you want?" I let out a soft laugh. "What do I want? I just want to be acknowledged, but clearly that's still a luxury in my family." A few minutes later, another message popped up from Mia, Noah's perfect fiancé, the one who had once thanked me profusely for helping plan their engagement party, and now sat silent as a statue while I was excluded from this welcome celebration. "Mia, Victoria, I don't want to see you hurt, but things will only get worse if you keep this up. You're putting Noah in a tough spot." I set my wine down on the wooden table, leaned back in my chair, and watched the flames dance in the fireplace. Putting Noah in a tough spot. What about me? Have I ever been considered in any of this? But it didn't stop there. The next morning, when I posted a photo of golden waffles drizzled with syrup, beside a steaming cup of coffee with the caption, "Cold air, hot coffee, and no one controls my mood anymore." The first phone call came in, not from Mom, not from Noah, but from Aunt Lydia, my mom's sister, the one who always stayed helpfully neutral. I didn't answer, but a voicemail followed immediately. "Victoria, I know you're upset, but you don't have to go so public with this. People will think you're turning against your family. Honestly, sweetie, come back, explain calmly, and let's all celebrate together. Don't escalate things over hurt feelings." I wept still. No one asked why I was left off the guest list. No one wondered if I was okay. They were too busy worrying about the family's image, too busy smoothing things over, too busy keeping things nice, and me just a name crossed out then blamed for not behaving appropriately. The more I thought about it, the colder I felt. Not because of the snow, but because of the blinding truth. I wasn't overreacting. They just weren't used to me standing up for myself. I set my phone down, opened the camera, and snapped a photo from the cabin window, the frozen lake reflecting the sunlight like crystal. I didn't write a caption, just posted it with a thumbs up and smile emoji. Almost instantly, a college friend commented, "Living your best life, Vic. I wish I had the guts to cut ties with people who don't deserve space in my life." A former coworker wrote, I was once the shadow in my own family. You're inspiring. I read every word, every emoji, and felt something strange stir in my chest. I wasn't alone. While my own family tried to make me feel like the problem, complete strangers could see my worth. That night, as the fire in the hearth faded to embers, I reopened my phone and found another message from Noah. Noah, if you had just come, none of this would have happened. I really don't understand why you had to turn this into some big lesson. I quietly typed a few words, then deleted them. Finally, I replied, this lesson isn't for you, it's for me and I won't forget it. I hit send. This time I didn't feel torn, I didn't feel regret, I just felt peace. And I knew I had taken another step out of that old cycle called endure to be accepted. I was sitting on the wooden floor by the cabin window, wrapped in a blanket and sipping hot cocoa when the phone rang again. It was Carla, my cousin on Mom's side, the only one in our extended family I still kept in touch with because she was smart enough to stay out of the drama, and kind enough never to hurt others for her own gain. I picked up, and before I could say anything, her voice burst through, a mix of excitement and disbelief. Vic, oh my God, sit down! You will not believe what just happened! I took a sip of cocoa, smiling softly. Let me guess. Someone spilled the cake or Noah said something dumb in front of Grandma. No, this is way beyond that. I raised an eyebrow, sensing chaos was about to unfold. Carla's voice dropped to a whisper, like she was hiding in a corner to call me. Mia walked out in the middle of the party right after throwing a mocktail all over Noah. I nearly spilled my drink. What? Yeah, turns out Noah got caught flirting with Rachel Myers, his ex from high school, the one Mia swore was never allowed in shared spaces. I leaned on my knee, heart racing. Rachel Myers, that name alone used to set me off, even if it was just a harmless birthday comment on Facebook. And Noah never really knew how to set boundaries. Mia really laughed. Not just left, Vic. Before storming out, she told everyone, I was stupid to think you were actually a grown-up. Then bam, mocktail all over his crisp white shirt. Everyone froze. I didn't know whether to laugh or sigh. And Noah, after Mia left, he lost it, punched the brick wall by the door. Guess what happened? Broken hand. Bingo. Right wrist, swollen like a grapefruit. They had to call an ambulance. Your mom was sobbing, saying, everything's falling apart. Your dad ran around looking for help, but half the guests had already quietly left. I got up, walked to the kitchen, set down my cocoa, and leaned on the counter. The chaotic puzzle in my mind was coming together into something almost pitifully comedic. Carla wasn't done. Oh, and Uncle Pete. You remember the one always bragging about whale watching in Alaska? He got so drunk he slipped and face-planted right into the punch bowl. I burst out laughing. No way, I swear. But the best part, Grandma, want to guess what she said? I stayed quiet, sensing the punchline would land hard. Carla took a deep breath, then lowered her voice like she was sharing a golden secret. She looked Noah straight in the face, hand bandaged, shirt soaked in punch, and said, You're paying the price for cutting out the one person in this family who truly loved you unconditionally. Don't expect forgiveness from the heavens when you erase your own blood. I froze. I had always thought Grandma sided with my parents, always choosing peace over justice, but today she said that straight to Noah's face. Carla continued. She stood up, grabbed her cane, and walked out like a queen. No one said a word. Vic, you weren't there, but you were still the center of tonight. I walked back to the couch, holding the phone in both hands. I don't even know what to say, Carla giggled. You don't have to say anything. You didn't need to be there for them to realize how important you are. They wrecked it all by themselves, and this time, you're not the one paying the price. I looked out the window. Snow was still falling softly. The pine forest outside my cabin stood silent, untouched. Inside and out, it was all still and calm. And somehow, in the chaos of a party I wasn't invited to, I felt free. I had just stepped out of the hot tub on the cabin's porch, towel wrapped around my shoulders, still scented with herbal oil, when my phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from Noah. If you had been there, none of this would have happened. I stared at the words, my finger hovering between two impulses. Delete it immediately or save it to remind myself that some things once said can't be unsaid. I didn't reply. Instead, I sat down on the wooden chair beside the outdoor fireplace, watching snow gather on the pine branches, feeling a strange mix of bitterness and quiet amusement. They had made me the family shield for years, only to panic when I stopped standing there to absorb their fallout. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Mom. Can you stop being childish? Noah is a wreck, and your father and I are dealing with everything. Why is it that when the family needs you, you choose to disappear? I took a deep breath, trying not to let the anger boil over. I'd heard those lines my whole life. When we need you, you're not there. Why can't you be more like your brother and just take a step back? Family means sacrifice. But this time, I was different. I no longer wanted to carry the weight of roles they had assigned to me without my consent. Seaburger then came a missed call from Dad. When I didn't pick up, he left a voicemail. Victoria, I don't understand why you're blowing everything up over not being invited to a party. Your mother's been crying all night, and Noah's in pain physically and emotionally. You're an adult. You should know this is when you need to come back. I pressed my lips together, eyes focused on the screen that lit up with another new message. This time from Mia. Vic, I know I have no right to ask for anything, but I'm honestly freaking out. I don't know what to say to Noah, to his parents, to our friends. Everyone's looking at me like I ruined everything. If you could just talk to Noah, even for a moment, maybe he'd calm down. A shiver ran down my spine. They were blaming me. Not one person asked why I wasn't at the party. Not one of them considered that maybe I stayed away because I was tired. Tired of being the one to fix what no one else ever tried to keep whole. I opened my notes app and typed a single line. Not being there to clean up the mess doesn't mean I caused it. Then I got up, walked into the cabin, poured myself a cup of peppermint tea, and opened the window. The cold air swept in, carrying the scent of pine and melting snow. I knew this for certain. If I went back, I'd end up cleaning up the pieces again, the one they never saw as important until everything fell apart. And the most ridiculous part was I didn't do anything. Noah flirted with his ex. Mia walked out. My parents lost control, and me, I simply wasn't there and yet somehow became the center of the fallout in their eyes. I picked up my phone and scrolled through all the messages, pausing on Mom's, "Can you stop being childish?" I pressed and held, selected forward, sent it to myself, and titled the conversation, "Why I'm Not Going Back." Then I went into settings and muted the family group chat. I needed silence, not to forget, but to remember exactly why I walked away. As night fell, the firelight danced across the wooden walls again. I opened the book I brought, a novel about healing, and read slowly, page by page. No messages, no guilt-tripping voices, just the wind brushing the cabin roof and words whispering of freedom. And I knew, no matter how hard they tried to pull me back, I wasn't in that old place anymore. I had stepped out of my old role, the silent endurer, the peacemaker, the one who was never allowed to be angry, hurt, or say enough. I woke up to sunlight peeking through the wooden blinds, casting a soft golden glow across the ash-gray blanket. The wind whispered outside the window, mingled with the sound of snow falling on the roof, and my heart felt calm. My phone sat quietly on the nightstand. Just a lifeless metal block I'd switched to airplane mode the night before, after reading Mia's final message and silently blocking them all. Noah, Mom, Dad, and every relative who thought they had the right to judge. I didn't feel guilty. On the contrary, for the first time in years, I felt at peace. After a simple breakfast of toast and strong coffee, I suited up for skiing and stepped outside. The view unfolded like a painting, towering pines draped in snow, sunlight streaking down the white slopes, and in the distance, a group of people laughing as they strapped on skis. That morning's lesson was led by Sam, a blonde instructor with a bright smile and pale blue eyes that held something. Understanding. He gently adjusted my stance, encouraged me every time I stumbled or wobbled in the snow. "Don't fight the slope, Victoria, just relax. Trust your body, it knows the way." I laughed after my third fall, snow clinging to the back of my jacket. "That sounds like a life lesson." "Maybe it is." Sam winked. "I've met a lot of people who came here to escape something. But once they dared to glide down that first hill, they realized what they really needed was freedom." I looked at him, feeling something catch in my chest. He probably had no idea how close to home that landed. In the afternoon, I joined a snowshoeing tour around the frozen lake. The guide, Linda, was a warm, witty woman in her 50s. Beside me walked a couple from Seattle, Mark and Jamie, probably in their 40s, spending their annual winter break at White Pine Lodge. "First time traveling alone?" Jaime asked as we paused by an old pine tree. I nodded a bit shyly. Yeah, and first time not carrying other people's expectations. Mark chuckled, pointing to the circle of footprints in the snow. Then you're headed the right way. Some trips aren't about going towards someone, they're about getting away. That evening, I stopped by the bar at the lodge. Soft amber lighting, acoustic guitar under a wooden roof, and people huddled close to the fire, sipping drinks and swapping stories. Sam saw me and waved me over to a table where a few guests had gathered. I sat down, ordered a glass of red wine, and minutes later was laughing out loud at a Canadian guy telling the story of his epic wipeout on last year's slope. No one asked where I was from, no one pried into why I was alone, and I realized sometimes the best thing a stranger can do for you is not try to unpack your past. That night, I returned to the cabin with cheeks flushed from the wine and the cold, but my heart was warm. I took off my coat, wrapped myself in a blanket, and sat by the fireplace. The flames danced, the wood crackled, and I pulled out the journal I brought from home. Flipping to the first empty page, I wrote my first sentence in months. Freedom isn't running away, it's refusing to return to places that hurt you. I closed the notebook, placed it on the table, and for the first time on this trip, I turned my phone back on. The screen lit up with a flood of missed notifications, but I scrolled past them all without opening a single one. Instead, I opened my settings and kept the block list intact. I didn't want another excuse. I didn't need another explanation for why I was excluded. I had chosen myself, and that choice had never felt clearer. I picked up my phone, opened the camera, and snapped a photo through the cabin window, the moonlight reflecting on the frozen lake, tree shadows stretching across the snow. I wrote the caption, "I didn't disappear, I just started living where I belong." No tags, no expectations, just me. Finally being me. I sat on the cabin balcony, a wool robe wrapped around me, feet resting on a stool lightly dusted with melted snow, hands curled around a steaming cup of coffee. The sun was rising, painting the distant mountains in gold, casting a gentle shimmer through the pine branches like a soft blanket. No more message notifications, no more missed calls, only the wind rustling through the trees and my heartbeat, steady and quiet in my chest, like a rhythm of life I'd forgotten I still had. That morning, as I walked down to the front desk to ask about the shuttle back to the airport, I froze mid-step. I looked at the calendar hanging behind the counter, eyes landing on the red-circled Sunday, my planned departure date. I looked up and asked Tara, the receptionist, with a smile warm as hot cocoa, if I wanted to stay one more week. Is the cabin still available? Tara didn't look surprised. She tilted her head and tapped a few keys. Lucky for you, it hasn't been booked yet. Want me to hold it for you? I nodded without hesitation. I wasn't afraid of going back. I just couldn't see a single reason to leave a place where I finally felt like myself. That afternoon, while sipping wine at the resort bar, I got a message from Carla, the one cousin I still spoke to after everything. Your mom's organizing a family meeting next week, apparently to clear the air. Just a heads up, you're on the guest of honor list. I leaned back in my chair, watching the golden light sparkle through my wine glass. A slow smile crept across my face, not from anger, but from knowing the game all too well. An intervention masked as concern, but really just a performance. A collective defense in which I'd be pushed back into the role of the one who needs to understand. I typed a short reply and sent it to Carla. I'm too busy enjoying myself. Good luck with your mess. No exclamation mark, no fake warmth. Just a goodbye I wouldn't be taking back. Then I turned off the screen, flipped the phone face down on the table, and didn't touch it for the rest of the day. The next few days passed like a frozen stream in the woods, quiet and refreshing. I spent mornings skiing with Sam, afternoons walking the lake trails with familiar guests, and evenings back at the wooden table in the bar, listening to Mark's stories about getting lost on mountain hikes in Colorado. No one mentioned family. No one asked what I was running from. We were just people living in the now with no need to explain the past. One weekend morning, sitting in the cabin reading, I realized days had gone by without me feeling like I had to be anywhere. I no longer felt guilty for not fixing everything, no longer felt heavy for not being on someone's list. I had once tried to fill every role, the dutiful daughter, the selfless sister, the woman who never let anyone down. But I'd learned this. Living for how others see you will always make you a blurry version of yourself. Now I was just Victoria, the woman sipping coffee on a mountain, feeling the wind in her hair and the sunlight hitting a heart that had finally stopped breaking. I set the book aside, lifted my coffee, and stepped onto the balcony. The mountains stood still, solid, as if they too had known silent sorrow. I took a deep breath, listening to the sound inside my own chest, calm, grounded. I didn't know what would come after this trip, but I knew one thing for sure. I had found myself in the last place anyone thought I would. And this time, I wouldn't let anyone erase my name from my own story again. Abraha. From that trip, I learned one thing. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't to stay and fight. It is to walk away and finally free yourself. I used to think I had to be there to keep my family from falling apart. Turns out my leaving is what made them look in the mirror. In that cold, quiet place, I found the voice that had been buried for too long, and now I don't beg to be acknowledged. I define my worth in the power of my absence.